Have you ever noticed that the harder you search for answers outside yourself, the more confused and powerless you become? Think about it for a moment. When you face a critical decision, when uncertainty grips your chest, when you desperately need clarity about which path to take, where do you instinctively turn? Most of us have been programmed since childhood to look everywhere except the one place where true power actually resides. We frantically consult experts, scroll through endless advice. Online, seek validation from friends and family. Pray to distant heavens hoping someone or something external will finally tell us what to do. And with each external source we consult, we unknowingly give away another piece of our innate divine authority. But what if I told you that this very act of searching outside yourself is precisely what's blocking the flow of divine power through you? What if the I Am presence within you has been trying to move through your consciousness this entire time, offering unwavering guidance and unlimited creative intelligence, but you've been taught to dismiss it as inadequate, to override it with external opinions, to trust everyone's wisdom except your own inner knowing? Has this ever happened to you? You face an important choice, and instead of feeling empowered and clear, you feel smaller with each person you ask. Every expert offers conflicting advice. Every book presents a different method. And somewhere beneath all that noise, there's a quiet certainty that knows exactly what you need to do, but you've learned to distrust it completely. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Here's the truth that changes everything. The divine power you've been seeking isn't distant, isn't conditional, and isn't reserved for the spiritually elite. It's already flowing through your consciousness right now in this very moment, waiting only for you to align with it rather than resist it. The I Am presence within you doesn't need to be developed, earned, or achieved through years of spiritual practice. It needs to be recognized, allowed, and surrendered to. What you're about to discover might completely transform how you experience every single day of your existence. The 5 alignments we're going to explore together aren't complicated rituals or demanding disciplines. They're simple shifts in awareness that remove the blocks you've unconsciously placed between yourself and the divine power that's been trying to move through you all along. These alignments don't create something new in you. They reveal what's always been present, what's always been broadcasting, what's always been available if you knew how to tune into its frequency. Stay with me until the end of this teaching, because what we're about to uncover isn't just about making better decisions or feeling more spiritual. It's about allowing the infinite creative intelligence of the universe to flow through you so naturally, so effortlessly, that your entire reality begins to shift in ways that logic alone could never predict. And the first alignment begins with understanding why everything you've been taught about accessing divine wisdom has been fundamentally reversed. Now, I want to go even deeper into what's actually happening inside your consciousness at any given moment, because there's a hidden truth here that most people never recognize, and understanding this single revelation can transform your entire relationship with decision-making, with clarity, and with your own inner authority. At any moment in your day, there are 2 distinct voices operating within you. And the reason you feel so confused, so paralyzed, so uncertain about which direction to take isn't because divine guidance is absent. It's because you've never been taught to distinguish between these 2 completely different frequencies broadcasting simultaneously through your awareness. The first voice is loud, insistent, demanding immediate attention. It's the voice of fear, anxiety, and doubt. This voice sounds like it's protecting you, warning you about all the ways things could go wrong, replaying every past failure and projecting it onto future possibilities. It catastrophizes, it second-guesses. It creates a sense of emergency around everything, making you believe that if you don't figure this out right now, disaster is inevitable. This voice has been shaped by conditioning, by past wounds, by every authority figure who ever told you that you weren't capable, that life is fundamentally unsafe, that you need external validation before you can trust yourself. And because this voice is so loud, so urgent, so convincing in its intensity, you've been mistaking it for wisdom your entire life. I create these videos for people like you, seekers ready to move beyond surface-level spirituality into genuine transformation. If this resonated with you, subscribe and join this community of people learning to live from their true identity. But beneath that chaotic noise, there's another voice. This is the voice of your true I am identity. It doesn't shout. It doesn't force itself upon you. It doesn't create drama or panic. It speaks with quiet certainty, with gentle clarity, with an unshakable peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being perfect or having all the answers mapped out in advance. This voice simply knows. And that knowing has a completely different quality than the anxious mental chatter you've been consulting as if it were reliable guidance. The problem isn't that you're not spiritual enough or that divine wisdom is playing hide-and-seek with you. The problem is that you're like a radio picking up two stations at once and you've been listening to both simultaneously, wondering why the message sounds so confusing and contradictory. Behind the scenes of every moment of clarity you've ever experienced, every decision that felt genuinely right, even when others questioned it, this inner knowing was speaking. You just might not have consciously recognized it as the voice of your true identity moving through you. Divine wisdom isn't distant. It's been broadcasting continuously, closer to you than your own heartbeat, waiting only for you to recognize its frequency and distinguish it from the fearful static that's been drowning it out. If this distinction between these two voices is starting to make sense to you, write in the comments, "I recognize the difference now." What happens when you begin to consciously align with this inner knowing, when you start distinguishing between the fearful voice and the voice of your true identity, is nothing short of a complete transformation in how you experience reality itself. And that transformation begins with understanding something that challenges everything our achievement-oriented culture has conditioned you to believe about spiritual growth and accessing divine power. Most people approach their connection to the I am presence the same way they approach everything else in life, through effort, discipline, and force of will. They think they need longer meditation sessions, more intense prayers, stricter spiritual practices, more dedication, more sacrifice. They exhaust themselves trying to become worthy enough, pure enough, spiritual enough to finally deserve access to that inner wisdom. But here's the hidden truth that changes the entire journey. The kingdom of heaven you've been seeking isn't a distant destination you arrive at after years of grueling spiritual work or a reward you receive for being good enough. It's already inside you right now, in this very moment, whether you're aware of it or not. That awareness is what changes everything, not the development of something new, but the recognition of what has always been present within your consciousness. The straining itself, the pushing and forcing and demanding that clarity appear on your timeline is actually creating the very problem you're trying to solve. Every time you try grasping divine wisdom through sheer effort, you're generating more internal noise that drowns out the gentle voice of your I am identity. Think about the last time you desperately tried to remember someone's name. The harder you clenched your mind around it, the more elusive it became. But the moment you relaxed, the moment you stopped pushing and simply allowed, It surfaced effortlessly, as if it had been there all along. Your connection to divine power works exactly the same way. This isn't about becoming passive or giving up on intention. It's about understanding that your true identity isn't something you achieve through effort. It's something you recognize. Through awareness, the wisdom you need is already broadcasting continuously, like a radio station that never goes off the air. You just need to stop creating so much static that you can't hear it. Behind the scenes of every moment of genuine clarity you've experienced, every decision that felt aligned and right, you weren't straining and forcing. You were in a state of quiet receptivity where the answer simply became obvious. The first alignment happens when you shift from effort to awareness, from forcing to allowing, from achieving to receiving. And this brings us to something incredibly practical that you can implement immediately, something that holds more transformative power than most people ever realize. If you're beginning to see how this shift from effort to awareness could change your entire experience, write in the comments, "I choose awareness over effort." Your mornings hold a power that most people completely overlook, and understanding this can revolutionize your entire experience of each day. Those first few seconds after you wake up, before your mind floods with the day's demands, before anxiety about pending decisions creeps in, before you instinctively reach for your phone and immediately immerse yourself in everyone else's reality, that's sacred ground. This isn't about adding another obligation to your morning routine or setting your alarm earlier to squeeze in some complicated spiritual practice. It's about a simple recognition that takes less time than checking your first text message. Tomorrow morning, before your feet even touch the floor, pause for just one breath and silently acknowledge this truth. The kingdom of heaven is within me right now, and divine guidance is my natural state of being. These aren't magical words you're repeating mindlessly. They're recognition statements that align your awareness with reality, establishing a foundational frequency that colors everything that follows. That meeting where you need to make a difficult decision, you enter it already anchored in your I am presence rather than operating from anxiety. The conversation that usually triggers reactive patterns, you approach it from a completely different foundation. The financial choice that normally paralyzes you, you navigate it with access to clarity that panic-driven thinking simply cannot perceive. What most people get completely wrong about transformation is thinking it requires intensity and drama, that genuine change demands heroic effort and breakthrough moments. But the hidden truth behind lasting transformation is something far more subtle. 5 minutes of gentle daily recognition will reshape how you access divine power far more profoundly than occasional marathon sessions fueled by desperation. We live in a culture obsessed with dramatic peak experiences, so we approach our spiritual growth the same way. We wait until we hit a crisis, then throw ourselves into hours of desperate seeking, hoping that sheer intensity will finally crack open the clarity we need. But your consciousness doesn't respond to dramatic overhauls the way our achievement culture suggests. Instead, it operates like a garden. You don't ignore the plants for weeks and then dump gallons of water on them in a single desperate attempt at revival. That approach creates damage, not growth. Real cultivation happens through small amounts of consistent nourishment, and the garden naturally flourishes. Your ability to let the I am move through you works exactly the same way. Each time you pause to recognize that inner presence, each morning, you begin with that simple acknowledgement. You're making subtle adjustments to your awareness, gradually tuning yourself to the frequency of divine power with increasing precision. These aren't insignificant gestures. They're creating neural pathways, establishing patterns of consciousness that accumulate into profound transformation over time. If this understanding about gentle consistency is resonating with you, write in the comments, I commit to the daily pause. The journey isn't about occasional heroic efforts. It's about consistent micro-shifts that reshape your entire experience of reality. And this brings us to something that has immediate practical impact on how you navigate your day. Throughout any given day, you encounter dozens of decision points that happen so quickly you barely register them as choices at all. Your boss delivers criticism that normally triggers immediate defensiveness. Traffic makes you late and panic starts flooding your system. An unexpected expense arrives and financial anxiety grips your chest. Someone says something that hits an old wound and you feel yourself contracting. These moments seem to happen to you as if you have no control over how they unfold. But here's what most people never notice. You have approximately 3 seconds before your conditioned responses take over completely. 3 seconds. That's the window where choice actually exists, where you can insert awareness into situations that previously triggered automatic reactions driven by fear and old programming. In those 3 seconds, you have the opportunity to return to your inner kingdom, to that I am presence we've been exploring. This is what I call the sacred pause, and it's where the second alignment reveals its power. Instead of being swept away by external circumstances, instead of letting the fearful voice immediately dictate your response, you create space. And in that space, you access clarity that sees beyond the surface appearances of whatever challenge you're facing. The sacred pause isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about giving yourself access to a wider perspective, to the wisdom of your true identity, rather than being completely controlled by conditioned reactions. That criticism from your boss. In the pause, you can hear whether there's valid feedback without collapsing into unworthiness. That financial stress. In the pause, you can respond from creativity rather than pure panic. That triggering comment. In the pause, you recognize it's hitting old programming, not your true self. What makes this practice so transformative is how it applies to the areas of life where we feel most out of control, where divine power seems most distant. Perhaps nowhere is this sacred pause more critical than in the area that triggers the most primal fear in human experience, your health and well-being. Think about what happens when your body sends signals that trigger immediate alarm. You notice an unusual symptom, a persistent pain, something that just feels off. Within seconds, your mind spirals into worst-case scenarios. You're researching symptoms online, each search result confirming darker possibilities, your entire focus narrowing exclusively to the physical problem. And here's what's crucial to understand. In this state of panic, your spiritual awareness shuts down completely. The connection to your I am presence that was available just moments before becomes inaccessible, drowned out by the deafening noise of fear. If you're recognizing how this sacred pause could change your experience of challenging moments, write in the comments, I create space for divine clarity. If this conversation created even a small shift in your awareness, consider tapping that like button, not for algorithms, but as a quiet acknowledgement between us that this conversation mattered. The third alignment happens when you learn to pause before allowing panic to hijack your consciousness entirely. Before you spiral into catastrophic thinking, before fear closes off your access to inner wisdom, you create sacred space by recognizing a deeper truth. In the kingdom of heaven within me, only wholeness and divine perfection exist. This isn't about denying physical reality or rejecting medical wisdom. That would be foolish and dangerous. It's about creating the internal environment where your true identity can speak clearly about your well-being, guiding you toward appropriate action from a foundation of peace rather than terror. The decisions you make about seeking care, choosing treatments, managing symptoms, All of these carry profound impact when they emerge from clarity rather than panic. Behind the scenes of what many call healing is often this exact dynamic. Consciousness aligned with wholeness, creating pathways for well-being that remained completely blocked when fear dominated awareness. And this same principle of pausing before fear takes over becomes absolutely critical in another area where panic drowns out inner guidance more quickly than almost anywhere else: your relationship with money and provision. Financial concerns trigger something primal within us, activating survival instincts that create such intense internal static that hearing your I am voice becomes virtually impossible. You check your bank balance and feel your chest tighten. An unexpected expense arrives, and panic floods your entire system. Your income suddenly decreases, and you're making desperate decisions from a place of scarcity and urgency that completely overrides any access to divine wisdom. The fourth alignment happens when you shift from scarcity consciousness to recognizing abundance from the kingdom perspective. Divine substance isn't limited by what's currently in your account, what the economy is doing, or what your employer decides. It's infinite and omnipresent, and here's what revolutionizes your financial experience. Your actual encounter with provision primarily reflects your consciousness, not just external economic conditions. This doesn't mean positive thinking magically creates money or that you ignore practical financial planning. That would be naive. It means that when you bring I am awareness to money decisions, you access intelligence that sees possibilities your anxious, scarcity-focused mind simply cannot perceive. Picture yourself sitting at your kitchen table with bills spread out in front of you, and the numbers just don't add up. There's more month than money, and that familiar knot of anxiety starts forming in your stomach. Your old pattern would be to spiral immediately into catastrophic thinking, losing sleep over scenarios that haven't even happened, making desperate decisions driven purely by fear. But when you've cultivated this kingdom consciousness we're exploring, something fundamentally different occurs. You pause. You recognize that divine wisdom sees solutions beyond what your panic can access. You still take practical action. You still address the situation responsibly. You still make necessary calls and adjustments. But you're doing so from transformed awareness that allows creativity and opportunity to emerge in ways that logic alone could never predict. If you're sensing how this shift from scarcity to abundance could transform your financial experience, write in the comments. I align with infinite provision. Behind the scenes of what others might call breakthrough or unexpected provision is often just this dynamic. Consciousness aligned with abundance, expressing itself through practical circumstances that your fear-based thinking would have completely missed. The impact extends beyond just surviving financial challenges. It transforms your entire relationship with provision, removing that constant undercurrent of anxiety about whether there will be enough. You begin making decisions from a place of wisdom rather than desperation, and the quality of those decisions shifts everything. And this brings us to perhaps the most emotionally complex area, where letting the I am move through you creates profound transformation: your relationships with other people. Think about your most challenging relationship right now. Maybe it's your partner who seems to trigger every insecurity you carry, a parent whose approval you've been seeking your entire life, a colleague whose behavior constantly sparks frustration, or a friend whose patterns leave you feeling drained and resentful. Your conditioned response focuses entirely on what's wrong with them, how they need to change, why they're making your life difficult, what you wish they would finally understand. You replay conversations in your mind, rehearsing what you should have said. You analyze their behavior, trying to figure out how to fix them or the situation. You oscillate between trying to control the dynamic and feeling like a victim of their choices. But here's the hidden truth that changes relational dynamics completely. The catalyst for transformation isn't finding perfect people or waiting for others to finally become who you want them to be. It's developing perfect listening to the voice of your true identity through every single interaction, especially the difficult ones. When you approach relationships from I am consciousness, you access guidance about how to respond rather than react, what to say in moments of tension when silence serves better than speaking, and how to set boundaries from love rather than from fear or manipulation. This isn't about becoming passive or letting people mistreat you. It's about accessing a wider perspective that sees beyond the surface drama of personality conflicts. That difficult person in your life. From kingdom consciousness, you can perceive what's actually happening beneath their behavior without getting swept into reactive patterns. You can hold your ground without collapsing into their chaos. You can speak truth without making it an attack. The fifth alignment is this perfect listening, and it revolutionizes how you experience every relationship in your life. What makes this approach so revolutionary is how it applies to the place where most of us spend the majority of our waking hours, our work. For most people, their professional environment represents a complete spiritual dead zone, where the I am presence seems distant, irrelevant, entirely disconnected from the practical demands of getting work done. The pressure of deadlines, office politics, performance expectations, competition, all of this creates such a dense frequency of stress that any awareness of your true identity gets completely drowned out. If you're recognizing how perfect listening could transform your relationships, write in the comments, I listen from my true self. You might have that moment of recognition before leaving home, but the moment you step into that office or log into that computer, it's as if you've entered a realm where inner wisdom simply doesn't apply. But here's where something transformative happens when you reframe work from mere employment, from something you endure to pay bills, into spiritual expression itself. That project deadline that usually triggers anxiety becomes an opportunity to witness divine ideas emerging through you in perfect timing. That difficult colleague who normally sparks immediate frustration becomes a chance to perceive the kingdom within both yourself and them, accessing wisdom about how to navigate the dynamic rather than just reacting to their behavior. This transformation doesn't require changing careers or finding spiritually oriented employment. It happens through bringing presence to whatever work you're already doing, recognizing that divine creativity can express itself through spreadsheets and sales calls just as readily as through traditionally spiritual activities. The impact extends far beyond productivity metrics to transform the actual quality of your daily experience. Behind the scenes of truly innovative work, of solutions that seem to come from nowhere, is often exactly this dynamic. Unlimited intelligence flowing through consciousness that's open enough to receive it. And this is where something profound begins to emerge that goes beyond any specific benefit in health, finances, relationships, or career. As this I am consciousness matures through consistent practice of these alignments, as you return again and again to that inner recognition, an authentic peace awakens within you that doesn't depend on circumstances being perfect, on everything going your way, or on finally having all your problems solved. This isn't the artificial calm that comes from temporarily having everything under control. It's not the fragile tranquility that shatters the moment something goes wrong. It's a foundational peace that transcends whatever situation you're facing, becoming the ground from which all your decisions arise. Financial setbacks still require practical action and wise decision-making, but you navigate them without the paralysis of fear that used to shut down your ability to think clearly. Relationship difficulties still need to be addressed. Conversations still need to happen. Boundaries still need setting. But you approach them without the emotional reactivity that used to make everything more complicated and painful. The hidden truth here is profound. When you position yourself to let the I am move through you through these daily alignments, what you discover isn't just better decision-making, though that certainly flows more readily. What emerges is something deeper, an unshakable foundation that remains steady regardless of external conditions. What I want to be completely honest with you about now is what this journey actually demands, because the pathway to living from your I am identity requires something that challenges everything our instant gratification culture has conditioned us to expect. This transformation unfolds through consistent commitment regardless of immediate results. And understanding this removes so much unnecessary frustration and self-judgment that derails people before they ever experience the breakthrough waiting just beyond their impatience. If you're sensing how this foundation of peace could transform your entire experience of reality, write in the comments, "Peace is my natural state." The journey is different for everyone. Some people begin practicing these alignments and experience remarkable shifts within weeks, suddenly finding clarity in decisions that used to paralyze them, sensing their true identity with a certainty they've never felt before. Others practice diligently for months before significant transformation becomes visible in their actual experience. The decisive factor isn't spiritual talent or some kind of divine favoritism. It's simple persistence, the willingness to continue recognizing that inner presence even when immediate evidence doesn't scream validation at you. But here's perhaps the most liberating truth of everything we've explored together, and this removes every excuse, eliminates every barrier between where you are right now and the divine power you're seeking. You can begin this very moment exactly where you are, with whatever understanding you currently possess. You don't need to master complex theology first, accumulate years of meditation experience, or achieve some elevated spiritual status before you're qualified to let the I am move through you. The kingdom of heaven exists within you right now, at this very moment, exactly as you are. Even 3 seconds of genuine acknowledgement creates space for divine clarity to emerge through whatever decision you're facing. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, you're exactly the kind of person this message was meant to reach. There's something in you that's already awakening to these truths, already recognizing the I am presence that's been speaking within you all along. I create these videos for people like you, seekers ready to move beyond surface-level concepts into genuine transformation. If this teaching resonated with something deep inside you, I'd love for you to subscribe and join this community, learning to live from their true identity. If you sense you were meant to hear this today, write in the comments, "This message was meant for me." Your acknowledgement might be exactly what another person needs to see to begin their own awakening. And if this conversation created even a small shift in your awareness, consider tapping that like button, not for algorithms, but as a quiet acknowledgement between us that this conversation mattered. There's a video right here about maintaining this I am awareness, even when life gets overwhelming. It's a natural continuation of this journey. Click and continue with me over there as we go deeper. Until we meet again, remember, the kingdom of heaven is within you right now, and your true identity is already speaking. You're simply learning to recognize what has always been present.